Hey, just here in the edit, giving this a proper intro. No, the title is not clickbait. Yes, I really did pitch to 9 publishers back to back in the same day, in the same room, real publishers, ones that you'll recognize. But I'm not going to mention who they are, so enjoy the vlog. Hey everyone, I wanted to make a quick video to just tell you about what's happening with me, because I've been doing some crazy stuff, and I promised you that I would make more videos, so this is me doing the absolute minimum. So, okay, in the last couple of weeks, I have been to Melbourne Games Week, and the things that I did at Melbourne Games Week were enough for like a whole year. Yo, hey, just wanted to say wishlist Insignia on Steam if you're a real one. Thank you very much. So, Melbourne Games Week, what is it? What did I do there? I went to GCAP, which is a conference for Melbourne Games Week. It's Games Connect Asia Pacific is what it's actually called, where I met with a lot of contemporaries, other developers, saw a lot of talks, just mixed and mingled as you do. I also went to the AGDAs, the Australian Game Developer Awards, which were really fun. And I also attended a very exclusive event called Play Now. Play Now is an event, it's kind of like game developers meets Bumble. So as a game developer, you kind of like put up your pitch deck, and then a bunch of publishers see all the pitch decks and they pick and choose which ones they want to be pitched to in person. And if you don't get anyone swiping right on you, you don't go to the event. This is like a speed dating style event for the whole day. I had 9 of, I would say, like the premier publishers. If you are watching the Game Awards this year, like at least one of those publishers have games that will definitely be nominated for Game of the Year this year. So it's like the big time, right? Real deal stuff. I pitched to all 9 separately in like 20-minute bursts. A little bit of pitch deck, a little bit of gameplay, chatting about what we want for ourselves and what we expect in a potential partner. It's very much like speed dating. And then I got all their numbers. So I originally recorded this video as like just a vlog, but I realized as I was doing the thumbnail just how interesting the Play Now stuff would be. And so the title of this video is probably something like 9 publishers in one day or something like that. So in service of that, what I thought I would do is just show you what the pitch deck looked like that I shared on the day and what I shared to get into this event, just so that you have some kind of reference for something valuable rather than just hearing me say that I went. I'm not going to go into like explicit detail. I'm not going to give you the pitch. I'm just going to sort of like roughly go over the contents and the distribution of that content across the pitch. So maybe we could go over this stuff in a separate video, but basically there were a few different pitch sort of templates or like deck templates that I reviewed. I quite like Rami's, and I saw his template and decided to boil it down even further, like trying to find what's the bare minimum that makes this what it is. And so I structured it kind of like a sentence. We saw an opportunity to make a cool thing, like these other cool things, but different. We're already on the path, and with your help, we can make it happen. That's kind of like the pitch. Basically, the pitch that I have today looks like this. So I've got title screen, a quick one about me and the game. Previously, this part here was like a table of contents, but the advice that I got from a colleague was basically that most people kind of just want that top-down understanding of like, what the hell is this that we're about to look at before they see the pitch. Hey, this is like what the game is. These are the platforms it's going to be on. This is how far in we are in development, that kind of thing. So then there's the elevator pitch, how I would expect someone who was telling their friend about it in one sentence, how they would identify the game. Oh, so it's like an action adventure, but like the special abilities are within enemies and you capture them as you platform around the world. So like that's like kind of the starting point. Then I kind of like visually represent the core like hook of the game. So, there's enemies, you parry them, and then you can use their abilities. And then kind of the implications of that in terms of like the gameplay. Then I go through some features and start to sort of flesh out the genre of the game. So yes, there's action, there's some crafting, it's got a story. A big pull of the story is the diverse, suite of characters. It's got exploration. Here is the map. It's non-linear. Sort of just throwing together visual aids and, strong catchphrases that are able to at least just sort of evoke the experience of the game and what makes it attractive without writing essays. It's more just like the concept that there is dungeons is important here, that there are boss fights and that they're theatrical and that that's an important part of the game. Expressing the game, 5 or 6 slides. You're not going too deep on that after the hook. And then I sort of talk about the market so that it's an action adventure with a equal balance of exploration, story, and action, and that there are lots of pixel art games in this space. Just to sort of give the person reading an understanding of like, okay, where does this thing sit in amongst all of the other games in the sort of space? There's comparison. So like showing the little green bars, the red, green, and blue bars about like, hey, this is action, exploration, and story. This is the distribution, and sort of just giving that little bit of context, and then also like giving some estimates that I've done, showing my research that like, hey, I think these games have done this well or this well or this well, and this is kind of like where we hope to be in this ballpark, right? If I'd showed a bunch of games that all made $100,000 on Steam, then it would be sort of setting up the expectation to the person reading this that we're only looking for a certain amount of funding, maybe like 20, 30 grand or something, if we were only looking to make 100. I'm just going to pause here to sort of like acknowledge something to you, the viewer, that like these might seem like inflated comparisons to make. Like, are you really going to compare your game to Blasphemous 2 or Nine Souls or these games that made, even Silksong that made like tens of $1 million across the different platforms? That's something that inherently I would typically stray away from. Like as a person, I try to check my expectations and be realistic. But at the same time, I've probably undersold Insignia on this channel. Getting to this point after 8 years of working on the game and iterating on it, being able to win grants and then direct a team to work on the game successfully and actually hit that standard, it would be a disservice to those things if I wasn't speaking confidently about what our objectives are and our aims in terms of revenue projections and the kinds of games that we see as competitors. That's just, you have to be able to do that. I know that online, I see a lot of Reddit posts every single day about people commiserating, being upset, or cutting people down to check everyone's expectations, right? If you make $1,000, that's better than most Steam games. Like, okay, sure. But if you're looking to make a career in games, like you have to be able to deal in numbers bigger than $1,000. I know this seems crazy, and I hope that I can kind of like inspire your confidence a little bit. For me, like, and for you, if you're ever in this position, you have to be confident enough to understand what your business needs are, what your actual projections are. And it's up to the publisher, right? The person receiving this pitch deck to determine whether or not that's realistic based on the deck and the conversations you have with them beyond that point. The game is very ambitious, and it's important that I'm able to like express that because I'm looking for serious interest. And then just a little bit of accreditation in a way, like just saying, hey, like we have the kind of like skills as a team or the runway so far to back up what we're trying to do with the game, why you should trust us with your investment. And then I'm going to zoom out for this. There's the timeline, which is super rough, very dependent on obviously like the kind of funding we get and the changes in the team as we grow, either as adding people or shifting responsibilities around, or you got to keep it pretty loose with this kind of stuff. But I gave my best shot at a timeline to sort of help the publishers get a sense of where the game is going to sit in their catalog. Publishers are very interested in filling out slots for different quarters of the year. So they might say, hey, we're looking for like 3 games for Q4 2026. If your game's in that time slot, if you're releasing in that frame, then we'll try to move the conversation to this point by then so that we can have this all align. Some publishers are more open to looking further ahead than others. A lot of publishers these days are looking for just the next 12 months. Then there is the opportunity and the ask. These are really about giving the publisher a really strong understanding of what we are looking for as a team in a publisher. Like, what kind of support do we want specifically? How much money actually? My inexperience as a director and as someone pitching in marketing for games specifically, I was very hesitant to share these slides. And actually on the day, I sort of verbally talked through these rather than showed them on the screen, because I felt like as a conversation, it was a bit easier. I didn't want to like say something too confidently that was way off base, that would sort of end the conversation too early. I didn't want to like throw out any deal breaking statements. So I wrote these for me and I spent a long time on them. If I was to do this again, I might like streamline them a little bit or make them a bit more open ended. I guess my overview about all of that is if you've done this at least once before, if you've pitched to anybody, pitching becomes a lot easier. If you know your game, you know your stuff, you don't need like cue cards. You can just sort of express yourself in front of the slides. And the slides should be there to prompt your natural speech. The slides should not be a speech broken down in pages. These are not cue cards either. They're just visual aids that help you talk through kind of what it is that you're working on. If you don't have the experience, then you have to have a lot of preparation. And so for me, preparation's a big thing. Because I have the Twitch stream and the YouTube channel and I do this stuff pretty much full time, I'm able to, put a lot of energy into things like competitive analysis. So I actually wrote some scripts to scrape a bunch of public databases that compile the best guesses on things like Steam revenue, using like the box lighter method, basically taking wish lists and then review scores and the price of the thing over time and trying to figure out, okay, how much money would this have made based on the averages, which are reasonably accurate. And then doing things like also scraping team size and how many languages they supported and how many platforms they released on. And then trying to understand even things like Kickstarters, how much money should a Kickstarter make to make a positive difference on the actual outcomes of a game. 100K and above tends to make a difference in terms of like positive indicator. Under that, it's kind of like meh. And then, actually I've gone through the trouble of actually compiling those things into kind of insights. And so just having a broad understanding of being prepared to have the conversation with a publisher about what the market looks like and what's realistic in that market. Confidence is something that you earn yourself when you meet your own standards of proof. And so, doing this for me helped me feel a lot more confident. And I think it did help in the pitches as well. So we had 20 minutes with the publishers. I sped through the deck in like 8 to 10. And then from there, if there were more than 2 people from the publisher who I was pitching to, I would give the third person the controller and let them just play while I spoke to the other 2. If it was one person, I found giving one person the controller or me playing the game myself really slowed down the conversation, because suddenly we're sort of watching the game and we're trying to talk and it's not working. So I think like having a trailer of gameplay or like a pre-clipped video is good. Or even if you have slices of your game that you can specifically talk to, like, oh, this is some story parts of the game. This is generally what the town looks like. And then you kind of like put the control down and chat for a bit. And then, oh, here's some action. Here's it in motion. A lot of the time, in these scenarios, if you're in a conference or, you have a specific meeting with a publisher, you don't usually get more than an hour. And so if you have like a playable demo that's just for the feel of the game, that can be enough to, show them what they need to see. And then the conversation progresses beyond that point. You're not going to like sign a deal in 20 minutes, right? You're starting a conversation that is going to go 3 to 9 months, depending on the publisher and what kind of things you're looking to do. So there we go. That's my little experience. I'd like to get back to the original video of me vlogging about my week at Melbourne Games Week. So enjoy. So then I went to PAX. Everyone likes to show up. There's like 80,000 people go through those doors over the 3 days. And I wasn't, showcasing this time. I think Insignia is just like, it's too deep in the weeds in development for PAX to be worth going to. I've had this conversation with a lot of devs and we all seem to say the same thing. Like, it's great to showcase your game at PAX at least once, just for you as an experience, to get a sense of your players and what their interests are and how they receive your game. But as like a yearly thing, or even as like a marketing event, the opportunities are very hard to justify in terms of the business case. But it's still good to do. Like, I would still do it. I might still do it again with Insignia, maybe like closer to release. Maybe like if we've just released the game and we want to do something kind of like, again, for us as developers. I met a bunch of great people there. There were a few games that stood out to me. One I would say is Houdini. I thought was really fun. Houdini is a roguelike, great pixel art. I thought it was pretty cool. And the artist said he watched my tutorials. So there you go. Another game called The Drifter was a game that I saw last year at PAX that swept the Australian Game Awards this year. Also a pixel art game. Definitely worth shouting out that. And if you want to support pixel art games, you go support those two games. Melbourne Games Week is great, even outside of GCAP and PAX and Play Now. I also went to a couple of Twitch events, little mixer events as well with other creators, and that's always really fun to do. Back in Sydney, South by Southwest was kicking off the week after Melbourne Games Week, and I attended an event called Waypoint Constellations, put on by some friends of mine, which was really fun, really cool event. Great talks, awesome vibes, dancing, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was just really great to connect with the industry again. It's always good to do that. I feel like maybe like 2 a year is not a bad cadence for me. If I do one international and one local, I might do that indefinitely. This year it was GDC. Maybe next year it'll be Bit Summit. I'm thinking. If you've been to Bit Summit, let me know. So then, what's happening with Insignia? I am pretty inundated with work at the moment on Insignia, between entertaining kind of publisher conversations, keeping the team busy on Chapter 2 production, which is going very well, and also getting that demo prepped for publishers is something that I'm spending a lot of time trying to juggle. I also have a contract job that I'm wrapping up at the moment in a museum. It's like basically a jam style game to accompany an exhibit, which you will be able to play this month at the Museum of History, New South Wales, if you're interested. It's an archaeology game. You can go check it out there. So what's going on with Insignia? Well, back in May, we completed our funding demo, which was the basis of our Screen Australia and Screen New South Wales funds. And that demo is essentially set up to be used to pitch to publishers, which it was at GDC and at GCAP. And over the last few months, I've been getting some player feedback on that demo that has made me want to essentially just revise it and tune up some of the pacing before we send it to publishers to play, in their offices, right, in their homes, which is very different from like pitching while you're holding the controller. I wanted the content to be able to breathe a bit better and afford for the player to do some backtracking. So I added a map and fast travel, and so then integrated that into the story and adjusted some things to make that actually make sense. And just yesterday, we had the first playthrough on stream of the new demo content. And what I found was in that playthrough, for the first time, like literally ever, I felt like I was experiencing the game that I've wanted to be making for the past like 8 years. Like finally, it was clicking. The game has like 3 core pillars: story, action, exploration, very common in an action adventure game. And I felt like the game was able to support, at any one time, I've been able to demo the combat in an isolated environment, or aspects of story, or even exploration to some extent. But with a game, the longer the playtime is, the more those pillars of gameplay need to support each other, such that backtracking for the purpose of serving the plot to unlock an ability that you can then use to explore further. That's like the 3 things ticking over at the same time. That we achieved yesterday. Like finally, I was kind of choking up on stream. Wishlist now. Ugh. Sorry, I just had a moment because it felt like we really crossed this threshold of, hey, as I'm playing this game, now I understand intuitively, as I'm learning these abilities, what I'm going to use them for. And I remember back there, I saw that ladder that I couldn't get up before, but like now I can get up that ladder. And now the next thing you have to do is go up that ladder that was back in that scene over there. So, just being able to weave the hero's path through the map is something that I really, really needed to see in the demo before handing it over to a publisher, because it is the promise of what the game is. And a publisher's time is just worth way too much to give them something that's not going to hit, the first time they play it, and in a hands-off environment for me. So that's what's been happening with me. I am feeling like pretty good, about the game in general. I think I'm just always trying to learn new things as a director, as a business owner, as a producer, and a game designer and developer, animator, all the rest of it. So for me personally, like, I find that all super strenuous. This is like this is the game development business. It's transitioning from making something that you're proud of, that you like for you, into something that is designed to make money and that you are hoping to, build your life on, and just the risks involved in doing that are necessary, and the lessons you have to learn on the way. That's kind of where I'm at the moment. And it's a difficult process. It's hard to do, but I wouldn't prefer to be doing anything else. I just wanted to share it with you. So that's it. That's this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're having similar experiences, let me know. And of course, I am still working very hard on new content for the channel. You can see I'm experimenting with some shorts to try to share more of the game with you, just more of like not just the work in progress, but the game, the world that I'm building. So, check that stuff out. Let me know how you like it. And also, of course, wishlist Insignia on Steam if you're a real one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.